Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, March the 28th. Last day of March. Spring has sprung here in the beautiful Sunshine Coast of British Columbia. Hopefully it has for the rest of you in the Northern Hemisphere, our friends and family in the Southern Hemisphere. It's just starting to be fall down there, so hopefully everyone's enjoying themselves so far. What were you saying? Dave is what?
Dave was still not there. He said, still not there. He said, well, hello, everyone. Anyway.
Yeah, he's here.
So, okay.
That's all that's important. Dave, you're here now. You finally made it. On tonight's show, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about the Apple Education event yesterday. Melissa and I watched it after the fact, obviously. And I know you've got some comments, being a person who works in the school district here in the Sunshine Coast. We'll talk to Jim about the event, what it means. And it may not mean what a lot of the tech media thinks it means. A lot of techies seem to think, because Apple hasn't lowered the price of the iPad to $99, it's going to be a failure. Well, as Melissa rightly pointed out, I don't think this was an event for poor school districts.
Oh, no.
This was an event for high-end school. I mean, did you see that school? That was a high school?
It was a very, very rich, lucrative school.
That was insane. The auditorium in that school was insane. It had chandeliers in it.
They could have the Academy Awards there.
No shit. When I was in high school, the auditorium was the gym.
Yeah.
We didn't have a separate building for the frickin' auditorium.
No.
There was no separate room that seated 2,000.
Same here in the brand new school. It's still just the gym.
And the library, there are cities that would wish for libraries that looked as good as that one did. So, yeah, this is not I don't think this is a program at all for the vast majority of school districts who are struggling, especially public schools who are struggling. But we'll talk about that with Jim a little bit later on. We're also going to the nice folks at KUVRD. I kept saying it wrong. The nice folks at KUVRDcamera.com, KUVRD camera.com are giving us 2 sets. So you get 2 of these. To lucky listeners to Your Mac Life. We're going to give a set away on tonight's show, and we'll give a set away on next week's show as well. You can enter the drawing for free. It doesn't cost you a thing. Just go to the top of the YourMacLifeShow.com website. Your Mac Life. Did I say that right? I said the name of the Your Mac Life Show. For some reason, it sounded weird in my head all of a sudden. Your Mac Life Show. Is that right? That's so weird. YourMacLifeShow.com. For some reason, that just sounds wrong in my head all of a sudden.
Huh.
That's bizarre.
So is the set 2?
Yes, there's 2. You'll get 2 of these. Each winner will get 2 covered universal lens caps, they're called. Monty, after 25 years, now it sounds weird. I know. If you haven't entered our drawing, go to the top of the website, YourMacLifeShow.com. Right there it says Friends of YML entry form. All you do is click on that link. You fill the information out. You don't have to do it all. Most of it's just curiosity. But you got to make sure you put an accurate email address in there. Because if you don't, I pick your name out, I send you an email, it bounces back. You ain't going to win. For those of you who are subscribed to Your Mac Life, and I wish it was all of you, don't worry about it. Your entry is already included. If you're subscribed to Your Mac Life, I automatically put your name into our virtual hat each and every month we get your subscription. So don't worry about that if you already subscribe to Your Mac Life. And as always, the more money you subscribe with, you get more entry forms. So it's free to enter. You get 1 entry form. But if you subscribe for anything above $4, you get multiple entry forms. So if you subscribe for more than $2, you get multiple entry forms. So we're doing that on tonight's show. On next week's show, we're giving away a copy, and this is a secret. This is a secret. I'm allowed to say this. We are going to be giving away on next week's show a copy of. I asked you this during the pre-show. Do you use custom ringtones? That was a question to you.
Oh. Yeah.
This is there.
Just the ones that are available on the phone.
But you only use the ones that are already included on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the reasons why you don't do anything differently is because it's very difficult to create custom ringtones. Well, the folks at Softorino are coming out tomorrow with something called iRing. IRINGG. Annoying way of doing it. but it's custom ringtone creation. It's actually cancel. Don't do that. It's and not only is it custom ringtone creation, it's the simplest, easiest way I've ever seen to create custom ringtones. Mm-hmm. It's really stupidly easy. Go to the website, softorino.com/iring, IRINGG. After the show, don't do it now. After the show, you can watch the video, and it really is as easy as they make it look. I don't do custom ringtones, but this was literally find a song. It sets it up for the 30-second preview, and you push to iPhone, and you go on your iPhone, it's there. Nice. It was just stupidly simple. So we'll give away a copy, several copies of that on next week's show, but later on tonight, it's this one. So make sure you have your entry form in.
That's a good price. Covered is a good price. Those things.
These things, yes.
They're just so good.
I think they're great. Oh, congratulations to our friend Sly. She has scored herself tickets to Bruce Springsteen on Broadway.
Bruce Springsteen on Broadway.
As Peter Cohen Flarg said on her Facebook feed, people should find something that excites them as much as Sly gets excited about Springsteen tickets. She is the happiest person in the world right now.
That is so great.
It is. It's really cool.
Sly. Yeah.
And as I was telling you before, the even, to me, cooler part is Sly gets to meet all these people that hang out in her Springsteen forums. People I talk to on Twitter, I'm never going to meet. People I talk to in the motorcycle forums, I'm never going to meet them. I'm not going to Miami to meet Tom. I'm not going to Houston to meet Frank. I'm never going to ride with those guys. But Sly gets to hang out with the people that she chats to on these
and see
on these
him,
forums.
see Bruce,
and see Bruce Springsteen.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So congratulations to Sly on that. And that brings up the thought: do you remember your first concert?
I do.
Who was it?
It was Elton John.
Oh, jeez.
I loved Elton John,
How
but I had all of his old albums,
How
not
old were
his
you?
poppy stuff. 16, maybe 15, 16.
My very first concert I was 12 years old. Kiss. It was freaking awesome.
All right. You see, I would never have gone to see Kiss.
It was the best concert.
Cool.
What was the single best concert you ever went to?
Oh, yeah. I had so many. I don't know I don't know which one.
I've always said
So
that
much
my
music in my
single best concert was, I was 17 years old. We drove from Halifax to Montreal, which is like a 2-day drive. And we saw and it was an all-day festival type thing. This was long before Bonnaroo or those kinds of things, Lollapalooza. And the first band was some guitar player I'd never heard of named Stevie Ray Vaughan. Mm-hmm. The second guy was some reggae guy I'd never heard of named Bob Marley. The third band was a band I'd heard of but didn't really care about, Simple Minds. The fourth band was this alt-rock band called Talking Heads. And the fifth band was The Police. It was the greatest concert I've ever been to in my life.
That is amazing.
I had no idea who Stevie Ray Vaughan was. We were like, holy shit, this guy can play.
Yeah, I would see Stevie Ray Vaughan.
And then Bob Marley was like, I've never heard his music before, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I wouldn't see Bob Marley. I wouldn't want to see Bob. Well, even if
Simple Minds was okay. They weren't good. But Talking Heads was the best part of all. I'd never seen the Talking Heads before. I'd never heard them before. They were just one of the acts. We were going there for the Police. But yeah, Talking Heads were actually a better show than the Police. The Police were actually very boring.
Kind of boring. Yeah, I don't like the Police.
I love the Police. But that was the first time I'd seen them in concert, and they were actually very boring in concert. Talking Heads were just incredible. Dave D says, Mommy Jefferson Airplane. I'm so much older than you. Sly says, I'm too embarrassed to say what my first show was. Come on, Sly. What was your first show? Sly's going to tell us what her first show was. I haven't been to a concert the last concert I was at was in Pittsburgh, and it was Tragically Hip. So that would have been 5, 6, 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. I just don't want to spend all that money for bad sound in these giant stadium things. If you gave me tickets to the Police at BC Place, which is our giant football stadium, I wouldn't go.
Yeah, no.
Because the sounds, unless you're sitting in the first 5 rows, the sound's going to be shit. I'd much rather see bands in smaller venues. But I'm also not a big fan of live music in pubs or in bars. Because for me, I go to a pub or a bar to talk to people and meet people. You can't do that with a live band.
Well, where I grew up, in Belmont, in Newcastle, the sailing clubs would have Midnight Oil and In Excess and George Thorogood and the Destroyers and AC/DC.
Yeah.
And I grew up going around seeing all those guys. So
3 out of 4 of those are Australian bands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
George Thorogood, not Australian.
No, George Thorogood's not Australian.
I don't even like Thorogood. I don't like Thorogood because his music was so derivative of the blues I listened to when I was a kid.
I like George Thorogood.
I never.
Yeah.
We're still waiting to find out what Sly, her first.
I wouldn't mind if I like some Wham songs.
But would you go to a Wham concert?
No.
See, there's the difference.
No.
Big difference.
Okay, way before Wham.
Oh, Sly. I remember who that was. It was, she told me once, blonde, a boy band, not boy band, Leif Garrett. That's who it was. Leif Garrett.
No.
And Sly went to like the mall to go see Leif Garrett.
Okay.
He was on like the roof of the mall, and she was one of those
remember
screamy
that.
girls.
Yeah. Oh no. He was so much. Oh my gosh! Remember the Bay City Rollers?
Oh
Does
my
anyone
God!
remember those?
Oh
I'm
Lord!
just recalling all these awful bands.
They were awful.
Cheap Trick.
Play for free in a park. And I saw Cheap Trick at Macworld Expo several years ago. Come on, Sly. Confirm it. It was Leif Garrett, wasn't it?
I saw Elton John. Come on.
I vaguely remember her telling me a Leif Garrett story, and me just thinking, oh, it's just so sad.
I remember him.
I still remember my worst concert was Miles Davis. I love Miles Davis.
Why was that?
Saw him at the Cunel, Rex Smith at the mall. Thank you,
I
Sly.
don't know who that is.
Miles Davis came out on stage at the QE Theater. Beautiful theater, great sound. Comes out on stage, doesn't say a word to the audience, just starts playing. And he's got his trumpet obviously mic'd up. And he's playing, And then he starts wandering around back and forth across the stage. But he's playing, so it's cool. Mm-hmm. Music would stop, and it would start up again. Never said a word to the audience. Never once ever said a word to the audience. And then about halfway through, he walked around behind the drum kit and apparently sat down.
Oh.
And sat there for the rest of the concert.
That's weird.
It was like, you dick. I spent a lot of money for these tickets.
Yeah,
Get your ass up
connection.
front.
Okay.
But yeah, that was possibly my worst concert for expectation wise. I expected. The funniest opening I ever had to a concert. My friend during Expo '86, my friend Rich and I went to go see Ray Charles, and Ray Charles comes out on stage with his handler, and we all just stand up spontaneously.
Oh, yes.
Standing ovation for Ray Charles. And I leaned over to Rich and go, "Why are we standing? You can't see us."
But he could have felt it. Feel that. Feel the standing.
I thought it was fun. Oh my God! Sly's first concert was the DeFranco family. Oh my God!
DeFranco family. I don't know.
Monty, boot Sly to the chat room. The DeFranco family. It was like the Partridge Family type thing. Same era as the Partridge, but nowhere near as
like
even
David
good as. Tell me about
Sly
it.
admits it. She's.
That is funny. Oh my goodness.
I used to watch that show, the David Cassidy show, the Partridge
Partridge.
Family.
Oh, I love the Partridge Family. Yeah. I love the show. Music I didn't care about.
No, I watched the show.
The show was cute. Later on the show, in our starting point photography segment, we're going to answer a question from Melissa. Why not learn how to shoot manual right from the beginning? It's a good question. We'll talk to her about that. We've also got a contest giveaway later on the show for a set 2 of these covered universal lens caps. So get your entry form in. Go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. Right at the top of the page, there is the Friends of YML entry form. Free. It doesn't cost you anything, so you might as well do it. If you're a subscriber to Your Mac Life, and you frankly should be, if you're a subscriber to Your Mac Life, then you can, don't worry about that because your entry forms are automatically put into our draws whenever we do them. Up next, though, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on this Wednesday evening, or if you're tuned into the archive, thanks very much for listening any way you can. On our phone, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Shawn. How are you?
I'm good. Apple's education event was yesterday. Do you regret not going?
Well, it wasn't an option for me to go. Just circumstances wouldn't allow that to happen.
All right. Do you wish you had been there?
If circumstances hadn't have played out like they did, I would have been there. So
it was a very interesting event. As usual, a lot of the tech media don't seem to understand what this was about. They were expecting new Mac Pros and stupidity like that. But after watching or reading about it, what was your overall impression of the event?
Look, I agree with the statement that you just said. I don't think that a lot of people understood what this event was about. And from an education standpoint, from Apple, trying to give that market what it needs, I think it was a successful event. The iPad itself is one small part of the story.
Yeah.
They delivered a whole solution, and that's what they need to be able to do. So I think it was a great event for them.
We don't know what Apple's goals are for these kinds of events, so we can't say whether or not they actually accomplished the goals. But one of the things that struck me while I was watching this and then reading the commentary afterwards is everyone seems to think that Apple needs to compete with Google on price. But Apple doesn't compete with anybody on price. No. Apple's going at this in a completely different direction, aren't they?
Well, come on. You talk about the cost of an Apple product. Apple doesn't make cheap products.
No.
Therefore, Apple doesn't make cheap products.
Yeah. That's right.
You're going to get a product that will last for years and years. And I bet when you do the ROI on, I don't know how many Chromebooks you would need to make up for one iPad, but I bet if you do the ROI on that after, say, 5 years,
yeah,
it's not as good as what people think.
Yeah.
And, it's a little bit unfortunate because Apple, to some people, Apple comes off looking like they're taking money away from schools, and schools still can't afford this. And, well, this is Apple. Apple, when, they said they've been doing this for 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, they've never had a cheap product for all 40 years.
Exactly.
So this is nothing new.
Well, maybe the eMate.
Well, now we're going between cheap and bad.
It was an awful product. No doubt about that. But I mean, it's the perception of this kind of stuff always strikes me, especially when people who you think should know better. Federico Vitici of Mac Story says the new 9.7 iPad does not have ProMotion, wide color P3 display, True Tone, Smart Connector, OIS, 4K video, second gen Touch ID. What are you shitting me?
Yeah.
You expect to have all that stuff in a machine that school boards can buy by the hundreds? That's not going to happen.
I love Vitici. I think he's a very smart guy, and especially when it comes to iPads. But I think people that are pointing out that type of thing completely miss the boat.
I agree.
Completely. And it's unfortunate. I actually have one of the new iPads. I picked it up today. I'm looking forward to digging into it just to see. I mean, it's a fast, I almost said fast computer.
Yeah.
It is a fast computer. It is very fast. And it's got 2 cameras. So you're going to be able to do AR. Try doing AR on a Chromebook. No. And I don't know about you, and I don't know about the listeners. You should still interview them instead of me. But I didn't buy into web apps when Steve Jobs introduced it in the first iPhone.
Yeah.
And I don't like web apps now. I want an app. And that's how I think that most people will learn more successfully is with apps. Integrate them into your curriculum and off you go.
Hmm.
So, and what did Apple have? Like 220,000 education apps or something?
Yeah, 200,000, they said.
200. Well, see, I inflated. I inflated it.
Of course you did.
Just, yeah.
Casey List says schools only compete on price, so if Apple won't, then there will never be a big deal in education. It's a waste of time.
No, I don't agree.
No, again, it's just that's not the market Apple goes after. They never have, they never will. They will not compete on price alone. For Apple, I think this is the key that a lot of these people are missing. It's not just the iPad. It's all the other services, which, by the way, are free, that Apple is throwing in with this. Everyone can code. Everyone can create. iWorks and Pages and all that other stuff they announce where kids can do these sorts of fun, cool, creative things that Apple is kind of saying you can't really do that with a Chromebook.
Well, and it's not that you can't really do it. You can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, try AR with a Chromebook.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at forward-thinking technologies. And, you know, to be honest, this stuff that, Apple should buy textbook company and give away books for free.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
What?
that's right.
Are you kidding me?
And that was Dean Moore, and I saw him say that on Twitter, and our friend Matt Deathridge wisely jumped up and said, dude, that'd be against antitrust law. You can't do that. It would never happen. It doesn't work that way.
Well, even if it wasn't against antitrust law, it's against everything that makes sense for making money. And Apple is a publicly traded company.
Yep.
I mean, just because Apple has a lot of money doesn't mean that they should try and right all of the world's wrongs. What they should do is try and make a product set that is attractive enough to organizations where they say, okay, if we buy these, are they easy to deploy? Yes, they are. Do they have software where we can administer them easily? Yes, it does.
Yep.
Can the teachers interact with the students? Yes, it does. Okay. How long will these things last? 5 years or more. Okay, well, how long will the others last? 6 months. Yep. Excuse me. So I think if you look at all of that, then Apple's offerings are making more and more sense. And, Casey did bring up a good point. Schools do compete on price. Of course they do. I mean, teachers are buying pencils and stuff for students out of their own pocket, and teachers don't get paid enough to do that.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for teachers. I have a lot of teachers that I respect from my childhood and my kids going to school. But, the school districts, I think, have proven that they're willing to buy this stuff. And in the past, has Apple made mistakes? Absolutely.
Sure.
They didn't have the software that they needed in order to make this stuff successful. And, they screwed up.
Carolina Milanese of Creative Strategy says a lot of Apple commentary focuses on Apple regaining ownership of the education market, but I'm not sure that's the goal today, as that market is very different from what it was. Apple wants to grow its army of distinguished educators so every kid they touch will love Apple. Interesting way of looking at it, that sort of top-down idea of get teachers involved in this stuff, and the teachers will then evangelize downwards to other teachers and to students. You think that's a possibility of the way Apple's looking at this?
I think it's even deeper than that.
Yeah.
She does bring up a good point, but I don't think that they want the students to love Apple. I honestly believe that they want the students to love learning.
Yeah.
And by loving learning, they are going to love Apple because that's what they learned on. Of course, that's all part of it. This isn't a freebie.
Yeah.
So Apple needs to sell products, of course, and all that. But I do believe that they want kids to learn. I mean, I'm not trying to be naive and say, oh, Apple is doing this out of the goodness of their heart. No, nobody does. But I think that they have a good strategy.
But wouldn't that bring up the question? This is me putting on my old fogey hat. What was wrong?
Jesus,
I
here we go.
know, but what was wrong with the way you and I learned? Granted, we're a couple of dummies now that we're adults, but do kids really need these kinds of things? Do they really need to put video in their book report the way you and I hand wrote it out? We never drew in our book report. We just wrote it out and handed it in. Why is this stuff so important? Jim?
Oh, shit. I hit the mute button.
You know, mute button works on your end. It doesn't mute me. You know that, right?
Yeah, well, I tried.
I know. Okay.
What were we talking about?
Is this really basically this multimedia look at education? Is that really going to help educate kids better, or is it just smoke and mirrors?
No, I mean, come on. I think what we're looking at now is not for the first time, but I think in a long time where the education system is really, really changing.
Yeah.
And we need it to change because when we went to school, and this really pisses me off in a lot of ways, that kids really aren't learning English and reading, writing, arithmetic, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think that has to still be a strong part of what they learn, but we need the kids to be able to code too, and Apple's doing something to try and make that happen.
Why do we need kids to know how to code?
Because that's the age that we're in.
But not everyone. See, I think you and I have talked about this before, but Apple says everyone can code. I like the idea they're saying can, not everyone should code.
Okay. So back in our day, everybody had to take shop. Well, I never wanted to be a welder, and my teacher didn't want me to be a welder because I almost blew the school up.
I almost cut my arm off with a bandsaw.
So he actually passed me, and I didn't hand in a single project, and he said he would pass me if I didn't touch the torches. The acetylene torches. He was old too. He was old when I went to school. And nobody saw him run until I was playing with the torches trying to turn it on. And he came running over and said, no, never again. Yep. Do not touch these. So why now can't kids learn some computer skills and some coding skills? We had to learn how to weld.
Sure.
We had to learn how to, there was home ec, what they called it.
Yeah.
And, but guys could go into home ec too.
Yep.
He wishes I had gone to home ec. And, but and then there was industrial arts. It was called.
Yep.
Which was welding.
That's
and
right. Yeah.
Band saws.
That's right.
So we're just in a different time.
Yeah.
For a lot of kids, that is what they want to do. There are a lot of kids that do want to weld, and good for them. But it still doesn't hurt to have some computer skills. And the ones that really want to do that can move on. The ones that don't can go off in a different path, and they can do what they want to do.
I just have always been concerned of this idea, and Cook has actually said this. He believes there should be computer classes in every school in a mandatory sense, like English, like math, that kind of thing. I 100% disagree with him on that, but I certainly do believe it should be available to those kids. The problem is it's not going to be available to every kid across the U.S., Canada, or any other place. There's going to be richer schools that can afford the teachers and the training and the computers, and there's going to be significantly more poorer schools who can't afford that stuff, and those kids are going to be left behind. Those kids are going to be the janitors and the ones working at McDonald's, and the other kids are going to be coding their ass off and going to be the next Silicon Valley millionaires.
Shawn, look, I mean, these are societal issues that have been around
Yep.
for hundreds of years.
Yep, I agree.
And it's not going to change because Apple has a big bank account.
Yeah.
Nor should it. I mean, I think if you look at what Apple is doing in trying to get programs out to education, they're doing more than most. Show me where HP's education thing is.
Yeah.
And Dell. I mean, show me, besides the fact that they will give you a discount, show me what else they're doing.
Yeah.
These companies aren't doing really anything. And Apple is at least, I think, more than trying. They're working on curriculums. They're trying to work with schools and teachers and districts. And, if there's a social issue out there that needs to be solved, then we as a society need to solve that, or the government or somebody. But it doesn't come down to one single company.
Yeah, I've seen people make that argument that, what is Apple doing to support these school districts and those sorts of things? And that's not Apple's job. That's not what Apple is in the business of. It's not what Apple wants to do or even what Apple should do. Apple is providing tools in the way they feel best to be able to serve those customers. But they can't make everything dirt cheap just so some school in Arkansas can afford iPads for every kid. They've got to look after their own bottom line too. I think we put a lot of pressure on Apple for this kind of stuff, and rightly so. I don't mind the pressure. I don't think they mind it either, but we've got to keep it in perspective, don't we?
Well, I don't think that Google is doing all this out of the goodness of their hearts either.
Agreed.
No company is doing. I mean, Google's publicly traded. I'm sure Google gives a ton of money away, and they do charities and they do all that kind of stuff. So does Apple, and so do the people at Apple. It's not about that. I mean, if Google wants to build $1,000 computer and give that away to every single student in the U.S., good for them.
Yeah.
Do it. If that's what you think should be done, go ahead and do it. But Google's not doing that. They're building a $120 computer, selling it for $150, and you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So
let's move on to the next bit of news. Interestingly enough, Tim Cook has spoken up again with regards to Facebook. He says in a Recode interview that will be available in April, Facebook should have regulated itself, but it's too late for that now. He says, I think we're beyond that here. Do you agree?
No, I agree. I mean, we said that last week.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody said to me today that Facebook made a big mistake. I said they absolutely did not. They didn't make a big mistake. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they get caught.
Yeah.
That's different than making a mistake. They get caught. So,
So they got caught. Should they be punished via regulation?
Well, I mean, I think that's what's coming. They're doing everything they can right now to ensure that there aren't regulations.
Yeah.
But like the thing that I posted late today was that Facebook is going to stop using third-party data aggregators.
Yeah.
Like Experian. And then later on, the part that I found most interesting is they can do this because it doesn't really affect their bottom line.
Exactly. That's right.
So basically what they use those other data aggregators for was to fine tune the information that they already had.
Yep.
So, they would jumble all that stuff together and give you a really fine tuned ad that they knew that you would like.
Yeah.
Without that, they're still going to have ads. They're still going to be targeting, and they're just going to use their own data, and it's not going to affect them much.
That's right.
So, so Facebook is going to be Facebook.
Yep.
But by making all of these moves, they're trying to tell the regulators that, oh no, we're fine, we're good.
I don't think there's any chance of Facebook being regulated in this particular administration. I think Republicans generally have said they like less regulation. They don't want to manage these companies. That's in general when it comes to Republicans, but certainly in this administration, Trump's administration, they've got no interest in regulating Facebook whatsoever. So everyone can be all up in arms about this stuff, but Facebook is perfectly fine for the next 4 years. As long as they don't trip over their dicks again, this is all going to blow over, and everyone's going to ignore what Facebook does in 6 months.
It's going to be like, wasn't it Experian that they broke into and stole all the 50 million people or something, customer data?
More than that. Almost three-quarters of the American population.
Yeah, and they were selling the data. They were Equifax. They were selling the data to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, come on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think anything's going to happen. Luke Brewster on Twitter had the best line about this I've ever read. He says, people want to feel known, not watched. I think that is the perfect distillation of our issues when it comes to these kinds of stories.
Just a second. Let me get my thesaurus. Distillation.
Whiskey needs to be distilled, Jim. Does that make sense? Does that help you?
Okay, now I'm with
you. There you go. Now you know. Because I think that's exactly what happens. When we see ads that are targeted at us that are relevant to us, we kind of like it. But when we feel like we're being watched, either by Google or via Facebook or any other company, that's when it gets creepy. We like Apple because Apple feels like they know us without watching us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That can get pretty deep. That his one little comment.
Oh, I know.
Jumped down a rabbit hole with that one, but no, I think he's right.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the intersection of, the line that you cross is when you're watching us, we don't like it, but if you act like you know us, then we're probably pretty okay with it.
So, if the government decided to regulate Facebook in some way because of this, I wonder if they realized that they would have to start regulating Google as well.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's going to open up a huge bag of worms that, like I said, I don't think this government is willing to do. It'll be interesting to see, though, how the European Union deals with this stuff, because the European Union is much more on the side, seemingly, of the consumer and of the average person when it comes to privacy. Facebook may have to make significant changes to the way it does things in Europe, and therefore it might just say, what the hell, we may as well do it in the United States and Canada as well.
Well, I think that depends on how much money they would lose. And wouldn't it look bad if the U.S. and Canada didn't do anything to them, but the EU did?
Yep.
I'm not talking about, outlandish, crazy rules that they put on them. I'm just talking about, what if they some type of regulation, but then the U.S. and Canada didn't.
Nope.
I mean, that would seem bad.
I agree. Let's move on to a happy story. WWDC is this year in early June, and you announced the Loop Bash at WWDC 2018. It's the Loop Bash now, not the Beard Bash? Why isn't the Beard Bash?
Just a change.
I like the Beard Bash.
I needed to change.
You backed down from all the people who harassed you last year, didn't you? You coward.
No, I just needed to change.
I like the Loop. You guys are going to be there, and you're changing it up, too. You're not doing karaoke. Tell us about the band playing this year.
Well, I haven't actually done karaoke in the past 2 years. Okay. We had a band that was very good band. I love them. But this year, so it's a long story. You know Paul Kent.
Yes, love Paul Kent. He hates me, but I love Paul Kent.
Well, Paul has a band called the House Rockers.
Yep, Silicon Valley House Rockers.
Yeah, and one of the best bands in the Valley.
Yep.
So I hired them to play the party, and it's funny because last year I was going to hire Paul to do the party, and again, circumstances and shit happened, and Paul ended up, we couldn't make that work. So I had the same band that I had the year previous. So this year, Paul and I talked, and he's coming in and he's going to do the party. But what's funny is that Paul has like a 10-piece band.
Yep.
He's got horns and he's got, everything.
Great
in
horn
this
section.
band. Oh my God, just incredible. That sax player is just out of this world. So they do all kinds of songs. They do stuff like, that old song, remember Brick House?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Brick House was a fabulous song.
But the Commodores.
So they do stuff like that, but then they do rock and they do, a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So that's who's going to be playing the party.
We had the Silicon Valley House Rockers play at the Yermak Life party several times. I think at least 3 or 4 times. Sly arranged that for us for the Yermak Life at Macworld Expo party. So yeah, they're a really good band. They're a lot of fun to play, and I think Sly hired them just because they played Springsteen songs just for her.
Well,
I think there's a bit of nepotism going on there.
Well,
a little something under the table.
Don't talk about having sex with dead people.
Okay.
Wait. Wait, let me get my thesaurus out again.
Folks, if you're going to WWDC, have the tickets sold out yet?
Well, it was some kind of a lottery again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lottery.
No, I mean for the Loop Bash.
Haven't even put the tickets up yet.
Okay.
And the tickets are free, so...
beer and wine provided free, so open bar, mixed drinks, you got to buy those. Tickets are free. You'll need to RSVP in order to get into the event. Jim's going to make an announcement on how to do that as we get closer to the WWDC. It is June 4th from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. at the Ritz nightclub around the corner from the San Jose Convention Center, so it's right off near the WWDC. Are you going to be attending WWDC or just sort of hanging around the periphery?
I'm not sure. I'll be there. I'll be there for sure, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
Well, as usual, there's no point in you going to any of the sessions.
Well, I mean, I barely understand what you're saying.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, it's a waste of time for both of us. We've been to a WWDC together, and we just sat around and drank because we're just too dumb to really hang out with those people.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now, though.
Fair point. I'm the first one to admit it. I remember sitting around with the Black Pixel guys. It was me and you, and there was 4 or 5 of them, and maybe the Chieftain, sitting around chatting and listening to those guys going, "Holy shit!" This is the first time I've had a conversation in English that I do not understand anything about.
Yeah, I'm gonna use this class to do this, and then I'm gonna move it over here, and I can make it do that, and I'm just okay. You know, the first time that really happened to me where somebody lost me in a conversation within the first couple of minutes and literally completely lost me.
Yeah.
I was in San Francisco at a bar, and I was talking to John Rubinstein and Avi Tavanian.
Mm-hmm.
And they started talking. And I was just like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? I don't get it.
And the thing is, there is no possible way for them to dumb it down for you.
Well, no. I mean, they were talking about the innards of both the Mac and the processor and how the software would work with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So John and Avi together, I mean, well, not that separate would have been any better for me, but you know, I mean, it was awful.
Oh,
I just sat there and I looked at them. Beer, please.
Yeah, there's nothing you can
keep
do.
them coming.
There's nothing you can do to enter into that conversation. You have nothing you can possibly add to the conversation. It was the most humiliating thing in the world for me.
I could have said, "Well, what happened? Oh, Abby, what happens if I hit the enter key when you do that? Abby, you know,
does Control Delete work?"
No, I just kept my mouth shut and nodded.
Yep, that's right. Same with me, the Black Pixel guys, just completely above my head. I'm looking forward to seeing pictures from the Loop Bash, also from your reports from WWDC. We'll see that happening in early June. Until next week, we've been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk to you later, buddy. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much, as always, to Jim for joining us here on the show. And now, after this very special message, we're going to talk about why you should shoot in manual or why you shouldn't shoot in manual. This is, hang on, I get this right. This is your Mac Life.
I'm your Mac Life's official spokes Australian. As Shawn begins his 25th year of broadcasting on the internet, he has asked me to say a few words to you all. Send money. What? Why not? More? Okay. When you listen to Your Mac Life, you'll notice there are no ads, no commercial breaks, no 5-minute ad reads for products you've already bought or have no interest in buying. That's because Your Mac Life is entirely listener supported, and not even listener supported via a paywall or a subscription service. It's simple. If you like Your Mac Life, you can pay for it. If you don't want to pay for it, you don't have to. You can still listen. But we'd really like it if you did. On the Your Mac Life homepage at yourmaclifeshow.com, on the top left, there is a subscribe to YML box. You can send any amount you'd like each month automatically from your credit card or PayPal account. It's set for $2, $5, $10 or $15, but you can set it for any amount by clicking the Donate button. The best part is you'll barely notice it. It's $2, but it makes a huge difference to us here at Your Mac Life. It means we can pay for website hosting, internet access, new computers and software to run the show on, and so much more. So, if you like Your Mac Life, please subscribe. $2 will make a tiny dent in your wallet, but when enough people subscribe, it makes a huge difference to Your Mac Life. I'm Melissa King. Thank you.
Welcome back, folks. In our starting point, we're gonna do that. Welcome back. In our starting point photography segment, we are going to be talking. Melissa asked this really interesting question this afternoon. You showed me. We just grabbed this. This beautiful old Canon AE1 film camera. Thing weighs like 15 pounds. Beautiful. It's steel, and it's got huge buttons, and it's got an actual real live aperture ring on the lens. And what was the question you asked me about this?
Well, one of the comments I made was that I'm used to the manual way of watching someone change their aperture and their f-stop or whatever. Anyways, I just asked why perhaps it would be better just to begin that way, if you do it manually.
So you're saying learn photography shooting manual?
In this way.
Yes.
Yes.
You mean film or using a manual camera?
Using a manual camera.
And that might be okay. One of the things I've always said is everyone learns differently. You know, some people learn better from reading things. Some people learn better from having hands-on stuff. Some people learn better from watching videos, whatever it might be. So everyone learns in a different way. So that's the first thing you have to do. You have to learn how you learn, and then get the tools to teach you that way. It's one of the things about the education announcement Apple made yesterday that's important is, I facetiously, devil's advocate, said to Jim, why is this stuff important? We went to school. We didn't have multimedia book reports. We didn't add audio to our math problems. We didn't do any of this stuff. We wrote it down on a piece of paper and handed it to the principal, or the teacher. It was good enough for us. It should be good enough for the kids nowadays. But the point I didn't make with Jim, and I'm making it now because I want to make sure people are clear on how I stand on this, everyone learns differently.
Everyone.
And as they said,
child.
I love the story in the At the event yesterday, one teacher was talking about how there was this really shy child who English is a second language. Her English skills weren't very good, so she didn't feel comfortable standing up in front of the class and speaking, giving presentations. But she loved the idea that she could do pictures and video on her iPad and hand in the reports in that way. Kids are not, in this regard, monolithic. Not every single child learns the exact same way. Yeah. And the more method teachers have to cater to individual children, if the teachers have the time and the ability, the better. The more likely that child is going to learn whatever it is that we want to
Absolutely, and then want to learn more and more.
That is equated to cameras in that if that's something you want to do, go ahead and do it. If you want to learn manual, go ahead and do it. The problem with learning manual that I found is that because there are so many variables in a manual image, in a manual camera, and creating, even if you have a DSLR and set it to the manual mode, there's so many variables that unless you understand all the things that are going on, you just get confused. You're just sort of throwing darts at a dartboard and trying to hit double bulls. So you look at a scene and you see the light, and you have to figure, okay, first of all, what's my goal for the image? Right? What's the final result I want to get? Do I want to take a moody picture? Do I want to take a bright, happy picture? Do I want to take a picture of the movement of whatever it is? So you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You look at the end result. What I tell students is visualize your final image. Mm-hmm. Don't take a picture and go, oh, and be surprised by what you see in the back. Take a picture knowing what you expect to see on the back of your camera, or in this case, in the darkroom. Mm-hmm. And then manipulate the camera to create that image. The problem is, if you don't know what aperture means, how it affects your image, if you don't know what shutter speed is, how it affects your image, if you don't know what ISO is, how it affects your image, that's just three. Then there's exposure compensation. Then there's metering.
Yes, but just those three, I still struggle with.
I can't believe you interrupted me.
Sorry.
I'm teasing. Yes,
you
just
talk about the triangle, so that's why I stopped you, because you always talk about the triangle.
Yep.
So,
but you have to understand that triangle intimately before you can start shooting in manual mode. If you don't understand that triangle, manual mode will just be hit and miss for you.
Isn't shooting in manual mode going to teach you how to use the triangle?
Good point. If it does, if you understand what happens when you change the triangle legs. If you know how your image is going to be affected by going to F11 versus F4, if you know how your image, the end result image, is going to be affected by shooting at 1/5 of a second versus 1/1000th of a second, then yeah, the triangle is fine, and that's shooting in manual mode. But if you don't understand those things, trying to explain those things all at once, which is what you have to learn in manual mode, you have to learn all that stuff simultaneously, then that can be very confusing, very frustrating, especially for beginning shooters.
Well, my understanding was that you could set up a shot and you could take it in a certain aperture or f-stop, whatever, and then you would change it either side of that, or you might change it two sides of that manually, let's say, for example. And that way, later, unfortunately, when you get your photographs back, you could look at that and learn that way.
Yes. But only if you know why those particular settings created that particular image.
Of course.
So if you shoot at, say, F4, and the image doesn't come out the way you want it to, you've got to know what other f-stop is going to create the image that you want. Mm-hmm. And so you have to understand what f-stop does, what aperture does. What happens if I go to F22 on this image? I already know what's going to happen if I shoot F22. Do you? Do you understand what F22 means?
It means I'm shooting more things.
Yes, that's the way I've explained it to you. What it means is that your aperture is closed down a lot smaller, and it means that, therefore, there's a lot less light coming in. So if I shoot at F22, I have to compensate for the less light by, do I increase or decrease my shutter speed?
You would increase your shutter speed because you want more light to come in.
Exactly. So you would slow the camera down. So that's what I'm saying, is that relationship. You have to know that instantly. in manual mode. You have to know exactly that this is the image I want to get. I want it to be dark, so I'll use a smaller shutter, or I'll use a faster shutter speed so the shutter's not open very long. So you have to know how have to know what the end result of your image is going to be, and you have to know how to control that in the camera. And you have more control over that stuff if you shoot in manual mode. There's no doubt about that. Because when you shoot in aperture priority, you're leaving shutter speed up to the camera, you're leaving ISO up to the camera, you're leaving all the other variables up to the camera. But maybe the camera doesn't do it properly.
I just feel like it's a little bit of a cheating thing.
It's not cheating. It's not absolutely not cheating at all. If you are working towards perhaps getting into manual mode. You don't have to shoot manual mode. Don't let anyone tell you you must shoot in manual mode.
Well, Dave D says, I learned on a manual camera. He's shouting. And so should everyone else.
That's
right. I feel like it's like that's what I say about a car. I say to people, you should learn in a manual car.
Yeah, but it's less like learning in a manual car and more like a beginning driver getting into a Ferrari. You know, you're going to crash the car as opposed to a manual stick shift where you're just going to go for a while. Yeah. So a perfect example of this is when you go to, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do that this summer, go to Hastings Park Racecourse. It's a racetrack here in the city of Vancouver. And it's a lot of fun because you get to practice different settings. So I'm going to visualize this now. I'm going to shoot in aperture priority mode. And I want to get that, so I want to shoot and get just the horse's head in focus. Okay, so I'm going to shoot in F4. So my focus is my depth of field is going to be very, very small, just the horse's head. But I also visualize the image. I love that, you know, that we've all seen that picture of the horse's hooves, the horse's legs are a blur. So I shoot that shot in aperture priority mode, and it's perfect. The horse's head is perfectly in focus, but so are his legs.
Which is not what you wanted.
Which is not what I wanted, because the camera took over the shutter speed. The blur of the legs is a factor of shutter speed because it's moving. Remember we said before, if it's moving, you manipulate shutter speed. If it's still, you manipulate aperture. So the horse's head is in focus, but the legs aren't blurry. They're in focus, which is not what I wanted. That's when I've got to switch to manual mode.
You do.
I do.
The camera is not going to do
exactly
that for
because
you.
The camera doesn't
want it all in focus.
The camera doesn't know what artistic choices I want to make.
Exactly.
The camera's guessing at that kind of stuff according to some algorithm inside the camera. So when you want to get more specific about the kinds of shots you want, more technical, more creative about the kinds of shots you want, then yeah, you're gonna have to learn how to do manual mode.
Exactly.
But I don't believe that a beginner should learn manual mode if that's not what they want to do. They shouldn't be forced. They shouldn't take a class, have their instructors say, okay, everyone's going to learn manual mode. It's like, What I've always taught people is there are two modes that are the easiest to learn: aperture priority and shutter priority. Practice aperture priority. Get really good at that. Understand aperture priority. Know what happens instantly if I shoot at F11 versus F22 versus F4. Know what that means. And once you've nailed aperture priority, then go to shutter priority and start practicing shutter priority and practicing shutter priority shots. Let the camera worry about aperture and exposure and all that kind of stuff, and practice and know what happens when I shoot at 1/1000th of a second versus 1/10th of a second. And then once you understand aperture and shutter speed, then you can work towards manual mode. It's baby steps. It's not jumping into the deep end of your camera. It's learning one thing about your camera, learning it well, then moving on to the next thing about your camera and learning that well.
Right.
Well, it was a good question. It's something that a lot of beginners, I see a lot of beginners in my class, and I'll say, what do you shoot? I shoot manual. How many shots? They're shit, because they're just sort of guessing at their aperture settings and shutter settings. They don't really understand what those things do. They're just taking stabs in the dark, and they'll take 10, 15 pictures. Whereas if they were focused and learned what those things mean, maybe they take 1 or 2 pictures. Monty says, can you tether either your Nikon or Olympus to your computer? If so, I have a teaching suggestion. Yeah, Monty, I can tether the Nikon to Lightroom. So you and I watched the education event yesterday together. One of the first things I think both of us commented on, and you had an interesting question about this. But we both commented on how this stuff is so obviously going to be used by more well-off schools, private schools. This Lane Tech in Chicago is a public school, but it's obviously a very, very well-off public school. And I said this to Jim. The problem is that those schools that don't have the money, for whatever reason, do you think they're going to get left behind in this technology push?
I think just as all the ideas unto themselves are amazing, wonderful.
Yeah.
But my issue with it is operationalizing it and
What does that
putting
mean?
it into practice.
Yeah.
So as a teacher, I don't know about the teachers in the lucrative schools, but if you have so many basics that you need as a teacher in a classroom, and I have to say I was impressed. I was wondering, oh my God, when are the teachers going to learn how to do this? And I was impressed that they had online, like they had ways that a teacher could do their little tutorials and learn how to do it. I loved that. It's like, way to go, Apple. But there are just so many other things that the classrooms need. And this is beautiful, but it's like, okay, it's just a bit lofty in my mind for many schools. I go into schools and really what I see schools needing are more people. So
More warm bodies, not warm computers.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the goals of the school district, but it definitely depends on the money of the school district.
Oh yeah.
I was surprised to hear you say that it's not a one-on-one thing here in the Sunshine Coast School District, but most of the kids have at least access to an iPad.
Oh my gosh, iPads, MacBooks, they've got it all.
So this is
Not
not a
these,
poor
they're
school
old
district.
iPads. Well, we have our district is completely Mac.
But it's not. So that means it's not a poor district.
No, well, this is Canada. We put a
true.
bit more money into it.
But the other issue comes is what you said. When are teachers going to have the time to learn this stuff?
Yeah.
In order to teach it to the kids.
Yeah, and then to put it into place.
Yeah.
So my colleague, Sandy, that's her job. She's one woman in a whole district that goes around and helps teachers use their technology. That's her passion. She did her master's in it. And that's her job. But she's one person. She's so in demand. It's ridiculous.
Is technology required to educate?
I'm not an educator, but
You're a parent.
I would say these days, yeah, I would say that it is. Yeah.
The problem with that is at what level is that true? Like how much technology is required to educate? And does more technology mean more education?
More technology mean more education.
If the kids have access to more technology, will they learn more?
I see it just as a way to cater it to different learners, which I love because it's not cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Every child learns differently.
I agree.
I love it that it's project based, that a child could take on a project and use multimedia to share what they have learned about it and not necessarily using writing because kids don't want to write anymore.
Kids never want. I never wanted to write. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think working in groups is a beautiful thing. I love that idea. So, what your question was? Do you think you'd learn more? Yeah, I do. In many cases, I do think they would learn more, for sure.
I think one of the things that they'd learn is not necessarily that data point the teacher wants you to learn. You're learning, like you said, how to work in groups.
Yeah.
How to deal with Susan. How to make Tommy participate. You're learning how to socialize with kids because we did very little of that when I was a kid.
Group work?
Yeah, very little.
Yeah, I love that idea.
I don't think it was until maybe high school science class. Certainly there were never any groups in English or geography or the other subject. It was only ever science class. You had a lab partner. Because those kinds of activities teach other skills. Getting along with others and social skills and
allocating
that kind of stuff.
roles.
Yeah.
You're going to do this, but what do you think? And I go into schools now and I see kids sitting around in groups at an intermediate level discussing, what do you think we should do? And that to me is, because no matter how you cut it, I believe in the professional world that you still have to have collaborative people skills. You still have to be able to connect with people, in my mind.
I don't think Apple was practicing hyperbole, even if it sounded like it, when they say that I think the second most important job in the world is teacher. I think the first most important job is parent. But quickly thereafter, neck and neck is teacher.
Yeah.
And I think it's obscene how, certainly here in North America, the way we treat teachers, that they're eating ramen. You know, they go to school for 4, 5, 6 years, and a beginner teacher salary does not pay the bills.
It doesn't.
And yet we want smart, dedicated, driven people to go and do this shitty job with fewer and fewer resources all the time.
Every year.
Going into sometimes dangerous situations.
They do.
And I'm not talking school shootings. I'm talking about, bad schools.
Yeah.
And I made this socialist rant many, many times. We play baseball players $25 million a year to hit a ball with a stick. And yet we pay someone who's teaching our children how to become better members of society barely above minimum wage.
Well, that, for me, the whole time I watched the presentation, that was my underlying sick feeling in my stomach. Was this is beautiful, and you've got this beautiful auditorium, and you've got obviously private school children because some of them are in uniforms, and you've got these lovely stories. But really, you're going to pay your teachers shit wages, and then this is, to me, is like levels way above where we're supposed to be in this. I mean, I'm not American, but even here. So that was my problem with it.
It would be great that if any school wanted this kind of stuff, they should be able to get it. That's the democratization of technology.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be available to the rich.
I could not
schools,
agree with you more. It's
the
like,
private
if you're going to do
schools.
this, then you give it to every school.
But that's not going to fly in North America.
Like you say, Apple's a business, and their business is to make money.
I do like the idea, and I wish the tech media could wrap their heads around this, and Jim and I talked about this off the beginning of their segment. Everyone's focused on just the price of this new iPad versus just the price of a Chromebook, ignoring all the things that Apple is including in that new iPad when it comes to things Chromebook can't do, augmented reality, when it comes to the back-end services that the 200 gigabytes of free storage per Apple ID, everyone can code classes, everyone can create classes, all that back-end stuff, that management stuff that Apple is doing fairly well. Apple's not targeting that at a low-income school.
No.
That's going to be used by, even if it's free, those low-income schools, teachers don't have the time to learn how to do this stuff.
No.
They may not even have an IT department to set this stuff up with. That's going to go into the higher-end schools, and that's going to be a shame. But Apple can't do anything about that.
Saddens me deeply.
Yeah, not a whole lot Apple can do.
But Apple's so rich. Why can't they do anything about it?
Because they got rich by not blowing money. Again, it's not Apple's job.
Okay.
It's not Apple's job to solve the low teacher pay issue in America. The fact that in Canada, the fact that we keep screwing our teachers.
Oh no, that's not what I mean.
I'm sorry.
That's mean. No, I mean, I think that if they could prove that a school only had a certain income to spend, I think that I would hope that they could do it on a sliding scale, I guess is what I'm saying.
MacMan says uniforms aren't necessarily bad. No, I don't think they are at all.
No, I grew up. My whole life I've been in a uniform.
I think public school kids should be wearing uniforms.
Oh my God, it's the great equalizer.
Yep.
That's how we go to school in Australia. Everyone has a uniform on.
I still remember the awfulness of going to school when I was a kid, when I was a short, fat kid, having to wear Sears Husky jeans. And had a big Husky thing on the back of them. So it basically might have said, hey, here's a fat kid, beat him up.
Well, and that you straight away identified through what you're wearing.
Oh, absolutely.
We in Australia, all the children wear uniforms. So I agree. I think uniforms are great.
You know, with the kid with the latest kind of jean or the latest jacket or the latest designer T-shirt or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I've always been all for school uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
It takes away so much pressure.
It does. It's an equalizer.
Yeah.
I mean, Monty's saying he detested it, and I'm not saying I liked it.
Oh no, you didn't. No, don't make no mistake about it. They're ugly. They look bad on you.
Oh my God!
But
it was only the sexiest little, beautiful little tan, little pointy-breasted girls that looked good in their uniform.
No.
You know, if you were me at that age, you didn't. So I detested it too. But now I look back and go, it's probably a good idea.
Speaking of which, I just noticed something. Speaking of perky little girls, the hell are you wearing?
I'm wearing my Harley Davidson t-shirt.
Your what t-shirt?
My Harley Davidson t-shirt.
You're wearing a t-shirt that says Harley Davidson on it.
Does it say Harley Davidson?
It says Harley Davidson on it. Unbelievable. That's just disrespectful.
Disrespectful to you? Disrespectful to you?
You don't even know what kind of motorcycle I ride, do you?
I do.
What kind is it?
It's an FJ... FJR something or other.
Who makes it?
Oh, God. Is it a Honda?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Son of a bitch. Moving on. Folks, as always, you can send us emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. We love getting emails from you guys. And don't forget, we have another podcast. It's called Don't Listen to Us. It's available on the iTunes store. It's also weirdly available. I just found this out today when I get an email from Anchor.fm is where the podcast is hosted. And they said that if you have a HomePod, you can say, hey, Siri, play the podcast Don't Listen to Us. And look, Siri just pops up on me. But that works in the HomePod, which just cracks me up. I don't know why I find it so amusing that you could say, hey, Siri, this is what is it? But it doesn't work on the iPhone. Hey, Siri, play the podcast Don't Listen to Us.
Now playing podcast Don't Listen to Us.
I take it back.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
I'm unlocking my iPhone. I've done that. Okay. Come on.
The shirt's
That's
backwards
not
on
us.
camera. Nobody can read it.
This URL wasn't loaded. Okay, never mind. Oh no! Stop talking, lady.
Well, Monty can't find any matching.
No, it's on the HomePod. I don't think it works through.
Oh.
I had someone confirm that it works on the HomePod via Twitter, which I think was just funny as hell. But you can go to anchor.fm/DLTU or do a search on the iTunes podcast section for Don't Listen to Us, or send me an email, Shawn@yourmaclifeshow.com, and I'll point you to the podcast Don't Listen to Us. Emails. I got emails. Marcus Mendez, our friend from Sao Paulo.
Mm-hmm.
I missed the timing last week, but couldn't let another show go by without saying congratulations on reaching the amazing mark of 25 years. As you know, you played a big part in my decision to start my own podcast. Tomorrow, I'll air episode 609, which is insane because even though I've been releasing episodes daily, Mondays through Fridays, for the past 2.5 years, I'm not even half the fucking way to your episode count. I'd just like to say that I hope YML sticks around for at least another 25 years. Melissa has been helping make the show even better. I hope I can still count on your company every week. You can sure count on mine. Thank you, Marcus. That was very kind of you to say. Our friend Arcsine. Is Arcsine in the RC chat room?
He was earlier.
Is he gone? He's gone. I didn't get to these questions because he says, regarding the Apple event at the Chicago High School, I keep seeing the same old arguments. Was the event exciting? Did Apple announce enough bright and shiny things? What was important about the event? Did Apple price the new product low enough? We've heard them and had these discussions all before. He says, I want to ask, when is Apple and Microsoft and Google and everyone going to skate to where the puck will be? Apple should and probably is aiming to deliver content from curriculum vendors to curriculum consumers, school districts and the teachers and students. So what he's saying is Apple should be in the middle between curriculum vendors and curriculum consumers, the schools. Some would argue that you must be in the classroom already to convince content producers to deliver it to their consumers, and that's the battle being waged right now, but I don't see it that way. Where will the puck be? He says it will be in serving up content from the big education publishers. The fight is to become ubiquitous in the classroom alongside text, workbooks, dictionaries, supplemental materials, and paper handouts. Have we seen anything where Apple is aiming to engage the big publishers as they engage music labels and TV movie studios? I say watch that space. Leave the price cost, the accountants, and provide for end-user creation. Providing for end-user creation and collaboration is nice, but it doesn't move the mountain to Muhammad.
Wow.
It's an interesting viewpoint, but I don't think Apple's wants to be in the middleman business. They don't want to be between, say, for example, textbook. You weren't here, but Jim pointed out that people have been saying Apple should buy a major textbook publisher and sell the iPads with the textbooks on the iPad for free. Sounds great. Sounds wonderfully socialist. But it also sounds like the government will crawl up your ass in a heartbeat. Because what that means is other textbook publishers couldn't compete with free.
Right.
So Apple can't do that. But I also don't think Apple wants to get in between textbook publishers and schools.
Well, they could get in between curriculum development and schools.
I don't think they get in between the development. I think what Apple wants to do is make that development easier for teachers. Not create their own curriculum or take curriculum from some textbook publisher and pass it to the teacher. Apple, I think, is saying to the teacher, here's the tools, you create your curriculum.
Yep.
I think that makes more sense for Apple because it allows Apple to be more hands-off. And they don't have to get in the business of curriculum. And it plays to Apple's strength, which is content creation.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you.
MacMan says, personally, I would hate to have digital-only textbooks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, at least when we were kids, you weren't allowed to write in your textbook. Some of us still did, but you weren't allowed to. They were bulky as shit. I mean, your backpack weighed 45 pounds just from textbooks. So I think I'd like digital textbooks if they were more than just PDFs on the screen. If the digital textbook had video and audio and all that kind of stuff. What do you think?
I just don't see. See, to me, you know, like just a very quick story about an amazing grandmother at a meeting that I was at recently. The grandson born 3 months premature, so he had rough beginnings,
Yeah,
right?
no kidding.
None of us knew. It was like, oh, okay, that's why I'm there, because we found that out. And he wants an iPad learning game, but he can't read it. Like, I don't know if children are necessarily linking up this technology with reading and what words mean, because they're so visual that her grandson said to her, "Oh no, Grandma, I want it, but you read it for me. But I want this game." And she said, "No. I'm not going to get it for you if you can't read it. You need to read it." He said, "But it's just words. I don't need to know the words." And she went into her back study. Bless her heart. This is why I love having meetings with grandmothers. She got out her Webster's. Do you remember the Webster's dictionary with all the notches?
That's right, yeah.
She put it down in front of him and she said, "See this? This is words." And he was blown away. And I found it an incredible story because she said, "Unless you can read that, I'm not going to get it for you." And it just linked it for him because she started to drive home the importance to him of words and meanings. And she opened it up and they picked out words and she read out the meanings to him. I worry about that link.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to completely get away from it because words still can convey information differently and I think faster, and I may be wrong on this, than just a picture.
Oh yeah, I mean it's all about comprehension and the recall and what a word can mean and how many contexts you can use it in. And I mean, I used to do that too, Dave D. I used to love opening the dictionary and just looking at meanings of words.
Dave D says, MacMan, the problem with digital only is that you need to look up about 10 different areas at a time, which is true.
Yeah.
Now, I still remember sitting on the kitchen table and having, 4 or 5 textbooks open up and having to cross-reference, and this one said this, and I got to get that piece of information, bring that stuff down. That's hard. It's not impossible to do on an iPad, but it's certainly harder to do, even on a big screen. So, I think textbooks could be smaller, certainly. Who was it? D8 says, our little guy carries a backpack, seems way over 20 pounds. My iPad has passed 50 ebook downloads bought and from the library.
Yeah.
I think the key, though, is that Apple sees its job and sees its ability to make a mark on education in providing tools to those schools who can use them. Not to every school, but we're gonna provide these not high-end tools, but tools that are applicable to a certain subset of teachers, just like they provide phones to a certain subset of consumers. Like poor consumers can't buy an iPhone 10. Apple is not saying, oh, we're sorry you can't buy an iPhone 10. We'll make the iPhone 10 $99 so you can buy it. Apple's not doing that. Apple's saying that's not the market we want to be in. Apple's not going to compete with Google, with $99 Google Chromebooks simply because to get market share. They're doing it for a broader reason and one I think they can compete in much better. Because Apple can't compete on the low end. They can't beat Google at this game.
I understand, but I guess I have a real problem because this is education. This isn't just somebody
True.
giving It's education. Every single child deserves to have. It should be more homogenous. It's just sad that this has to be for high-end schools.
I agree. David Farron in Dublin, Ireland. Your conversation in the last podcast about the new Canadian banknote and currency changing from paper to plastic reminded me of an incident. About 15 years ago, as part of my job as engineer, I was brought on a tour of our national mint where they print our banknotes. We went back to their engineer's office at the end of the tour. He handed us a briquette made of paper. He explained that it's a rule that all banks send their old banknotes back to the mint for disposal, which is true. Same in Canada and the U.S. What they do is shred the notes and compress them into these briquettes and then incinerate them. But in the winter months, they give the briquettes to old age pensioners to burn in their fires to heat their homes. Which is an inefficient way of heating your home, but kind of interesting. He said, P.S., we did not get to keep the briquette or any other samples. They'd probably have to do something to the briquette so people couldn't piece together a 10-pound note and glue it back together again.
No.
They'd probably pour paint over it or something. I don't know, something to do it.
Yeah.
That's funny, though. Yeah, I think I'm reminded once again that, I'm going to have to give up on the whole April Fool's thing.
What is it now? What is the...
It's 47 to 22.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's quite disappointing. I really am very, very disappointed that I won't be able to do.
Well, I suppose what I could do is just say, you know what, Shawn? Just go for it and we'll ignore the...
I'm disappointed in the audience. I really thought that they would let me do that.
I got all nervous about. I just completely screwing up my... Yes, I just wanted to say about the backpacks. It's just not okay for children to have heavy backpacks like that.
No. Yeah.
And that my physio colleague is always going on about that. And there are actually regulations about what weight children's backpacks should be.
Well, here's an idea. Don't make heavy children's textbooks. Why does a kid need a 10-pound textbook?
I don't know. I don't know. But So this is where we're not talking. This is why we say to teachers, we'll give them lockers. Give them a locker.
Even then, that's not the point. You're giving these kids he's going to carry it at some point. But why are children, we're talking like grade 4, grade 5, grade 6. Yeah, high school kids, sure.
Yeah.
I can see the science textbook in high school having to be bigger.
Yeah, well,
but the science book in grade 4 doesn't need to be the same size as the science book in grade 12. It's just stupid.
I don't know. Rory never brings a textbook home. Never seen one.
Talking about subscriptions, our friend Nathan Schmidt said, I let my YML subscription lapse quite a while ago, but now I'm happy to be able to show my support again. The show is great these days, and Melissa is a wonderful addition.
Oh,
After
that's
being
lovely.
with you through the ups and downs since I think about 2003, it's so wonderful to see the happiness in your life. Can't wait to check out Don't Listen to Us. Take care. Nathan. Thank you, Nathan. And immediately after last week's show, I get an email that says, the $24 donation you just received, this is from Susan Gare, the $24 donation you just received is actually from Logan.
Yeah.
He sets aside a bit of his money to share with worthy causes, and he wanted to make a donation to YML.
That's so sweet.
Happy 20th anniversary, Susan, Logan, and Greg Gare. A child gave us $24. He's paid up now for 2 years.
Come on, people. That's what we said. He's paid up for 2 years.
Logan is now in the donation basket for the next 2 years. And I made a note of that, Logan, to remind me that you are paid up clear through the next 2 years.
He won't get his next payment, do you notice, until, how old is he now, 12?
I think he's 12, yeah.
Okay.
So he's 14. Please, talking about girls more often. We'll lose him then. But yeah, I mean, Logan can donate, subscribe for $24, so the rest of you all got to step up. Come on now. Come on now. What else did I have? I think it was it. There was something else. Oh, there was a contest. Sorry. I was forgetting to do something. The nice folks at KUVRD, KUVRD, cameras.com, KUVRD, covered. I kept saying it wrong on last week's show. I kept calling it, curved. It's covered. These great little universal lens caps, and they fit on all kinds of lenses, and they're really easy to do. I mean, watch this. So there's a lens cap that's on it now. I pop the lens cap off. Watch. Lens cap on. And it's sealed. There's no stuff going to get, and it will not fall off. That thing is not even going to peel off like that. You got to peel this sucker off to get it to come off.
But it's easy to get off.
Yeah, it peels off easily. These are great little things. I think they're $30 a piece, and the nice folks at coveredcameras.com are going to give us 2 sets of these to give away, 2 sets of 2. So one lucky winner on this evening's show will win their very own 2 of these. By the way, if you win and don't have a DSLR, you're more than welcome to still take the prize and give it to a friend, or we can re-gift it right here on Your Mac Life. It'll be entirely up to you. So what we're going to do is go to our virtual prize draw. Where is it? There it is. And now that we have a lovely and attractive assistant, I don't need you guys to do it. What we normally have been doing is having someone in the IRC chat room say stop. But now that you're here, I can get you to say it. So whenever you'd like, I'm scrolling up and I'm scrolling down, I'm scrolling up and I'm scrolling down.
What are you saying?
So you just say stop whenever you'd like to say stop.
Stop.
This is going to go out to E. Torres Cecido. E. Torres Cecido doesn't say where he lives, but congratulations to E. Torres Cecido. You've won 2 of the covered camera universal lens cap. Thanks very much. We're going to do another drawing on next week's show. So if you have not yet signed up with the YML entry form, it's real easy. Go to the website, yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there at the top of the page, there's a Friends of YML entry form. Fill that entry form out with a valid email address, and you'll get dropped into our monthly prize draw virtual hat. But you have to do that every month, unless you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you have to fill that entry form in each and every month. Set up an iCal to remind you on the first day of each month, because I throw out all the old ones each month. But if you subscribe to Your Mac Life, I put the entry form in for you. So all you got to do is subscribe using PayPal or your credit card. Do it once, and you're covered for whatever period of time it is that you are subscribed to the show. On next week's show, we're going to give away another set of the covered I gotta get it right. Covered universal lens cap, but also the nice folks at Softorino. Softorino makes one of my favorite apps is let me get the name right. It is Softorino YouTube Converter. I would download a lot of YouTube videos, movie trailers and how-tos, and motorcycle videos and all kinds of stuff. And then we watch them on the Apple TV. I don't watch them on my laptop. And Softorino's YouTube Converter does a great job of this one-click thing. I copy. They make such cool software. I copy the URL from the YouTube page. It automatically grabs it. Softorino YouTube Converter grabs it, downloads it in the highest quality format it's available, and then puts it into my iTunes folder so I can see it on my home video section of iTunes. It's great stuff. They guys make some really good stuff. So the next, oops, I'm now covering up Melissa's face. So if you guys want a sneak peek at this, it's called Softorino. They're announcing it tomorrow. It's called Softorino iRing. If you like to create ringtones on your phone, this is probably one of the easiest. No, it is the single easiest way of creating a ringtone I've ever used. It's a lot of fun to I played around with it this morning. You open up the app and it gives you random music, or you can be specific and have it search for a song that it'll get off YouTube, or you can use a song from your own MP3 library. It automatically, I think I can show it to you guys. I just realized that. I have the, hang on. Where'd it go? It shows you the preview. You can drag the preview along the song, listen to it, and get exactly the 30 seconds you want. And then when you click send to my iPhone, it literally just shows up on your iPhone like seconds later. It was cool, simple, stupidly easy. So if you like creating ringtones, Softorino's iRing is the app for you. We're going to be giving away a few sets of these on next week's show and in the weeks afterwards. So please stay tuned for more of that kind of stuff. Anything else?
I don't think
You think
so.
we're done?
I think so.
I think we're done. Folks, thank you guys very much for listening. As always, thanks to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us here each and every week. Thanks to you guys for being tuned in to the show, whether you're listening into the archive or whether you're tuned in via live. As always, I've been Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!